Welcome back to another episode of Talking Tarkov. I'm the EarLegAthlete here with,
Hey, Dizzle.
and today we wanted to discuss our early wipe strategies, covering how we approach the start of this wipe with the flea market being locked. So, to start off, this wipe, they decided to lock the flea market for 2 weeks, right? The reasoning they have, we may not know entirely, but we assume it's just to keep everybody kind of on the same playing field and kind of bring that hardcoreness back to the early wipe grind, essentially.
Right, just slow the early wipe down so people aren't rushing right through like to Kappa, although some people still are, but
Yeah, you're always gonna have those rare circumstances where somebody or a group of somebodies just rush through
yeah.
everything and speed run the wipe and
Every wipe Nikita hears, at least, he gets a few people that's always like, "Man, I wish early wipe lasted longer," or "Early wipe's the best Tarkov," like, "Fights last longer." There's always so many people that point out, like, early wipe just feels better, so I assume they're just gonna keep trying to find ways to prolong, the end game. In an interview the other day, Nikita mentioned that this wipe was kinda a test as far as, like, taking the flea market out, but next wipe's gonna be even harder, like, as far as, like, leveling and getting
progression
to
and
the
yeah.
yeah. So, I would assume this is, something we're gonna see more of, and like I said, I get it because he hears that all the time from people, like, like, "This is everyone's favorite Tarkov." So,
Yeah.
they're probably just trying to make it like that as long as they can, you know what I mean? Like, slow down progression.
And I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's reasonable. I
Yeah.
know I thoroughly enjoy the early wipe more. Like late wipe's fun because you're doing the end game tasks, you're working on Lightkeeper, Kappa, stuff like that. But early wipe, it just has this chaotic feel to it, and like you said, the gunfights last longer. Just
Sometimes
it's
anyways, because
yeah, yeah,
it's like
you're
this wipe, I've
yeah,
had a lot of one taps, it's like weird fights, but yeah,
yeah,
majority of it, it's like, everyone's using low pen ammo, everyone's using level 2, 3 armor. It's just, pretty basic gun builds. It's kinda like it's just a piece of Tarkov that you don't see except for right at the beginning of a wipe, because as soon as people get a hold of good gear, no one's using that stuff anymore. So
right,
it's like it's something that you just don't get to experience for very long. So any prolonging of it, I'm in favor of.
yeah. I mean, even just for 2 weeks until flea market's unlocked is long enough that you're able to
Yeah,
get in and do some stuff and kind of see how collecting goes. And then, especially since they added that all your items for hideout have to be found in raid now. At least when it comes to getting your hideout up and running, all your items have to be found in raid for that kind of stuff. So it kind of takes away that, oh, I can just throw all my money at it and like it's easy to make money in Tarkov. So I can see it because it's just gonna force 90, I'd say 90%, a big chunk at least of the player base is gonna, have to go in raid. They have to find those items now. They have to survive with those items. So yeah, it definitely adds that extra layer to it. Granted, you can go in raid and find anything, right? So it's not
right.
impossible by any means. And I but yeah, I don't think them slowing down the progression is a bad thing. I think it's pretty
No.
solid. I'm enjoying myself. I, like many others, enjoy the early wipe.
Yeah, and I've seen quite a few people calling for, like, just the elimination of the flea market just altogether. So many people seem to be enjoying it that, it's like a lot of people are like, "I like the game better like this." So, we'll see, like, Nikita wants it that way, and if the community ends up, overwhelmingly saying they
On board
want
with
that,
it.
I could
Yeah.
see them trying it. Yeah, I could see
Yeah,
them
for
trying
sure.
it.
Or even just like a dumbed down flea market to where you can't sell and buy so many items. Like only certain things can go on the flea type situation.
Right, which
Um,
they've done that in the past, obviously, taking certain items like level 5 armors and things like that off the flea. That
right.
always seems to cause more problems because then everyone's just like, "Why even have it if I can't buy anything good?" You know what I mean? So it's like it's a hard thing to balance.
Yeah, and I mean you got to think too. A lot of players probably aren't making it to those end game situations where they're able
Right.
to unlock level 5 armor and run it regularly, or any of the good helmets or the face masks or anything like that. So I can kind of see that point too. Yeah. So at the start of the wipe, knowing that there was no flea market, we kind of already had an idea in mind, I think, and it's kind of obvious, but a lot of players still don't utilize it, and that's running your scav raids.
Right.
Dude, your scav is so crucial and can help you out tremendously. It's literally a free raid. If you die, sure, you lost your items, but you're not losing your kit like you do on your PMC. But if
Right.
you survive, you you get out with anything and everything you found, which is great. I know that I have more or less got my entire hideout up and running as far as it is to this point because of scav raids. Because I do a
Yeah.
lot more looting on my scav than I ever would on my PMC. I always use my
Yeah.
PMC specifically to go in and task and kill players and fight bosses and, you know, do those kind of things. And I look at the scav early wipe at least as a means of just transporting items essentially.
Yeah, I think we done that. We've done that a lot over the last couple wipes, where we would mainly use our PMCs just for our, grinding our missions and anything that has to be done on the PMC. But as far as looting, we would always just use our scavs or the main. That was my main way of looting is just scav. It's
Right.
like PMC. You take a risk when you're wanting to go loot things. You're going to high risk areas on your scav. It's like you're not losing anything, you know what I mean? And surprisingly, you can actually, like, get into a lot of places on your scav unnoticed. Like, if you're
Yeah,
not, like,
absolutely.
running around, like, being loud shooting your gun, you can get in and out of a lot of places pretty easily. I think a lot of people think on their scav that it's just, like, it's not worth even running because you have a bad kit and,
Right. You're just going to
you
go in and
just
get murdered by some
yeah,
PMC and
but
yeah.
it's like you can upgrade that kit throughout the raid. Like you can find a dead player and get some good armor, good gun, fairly easy. Like it's
Yeah,
it's
I
not
mean,
it's not as hard as people think.
I run 9 times out of 10 I run nighttime lighthouse. And one, because it's a quick route, you can run it relatively quickly, you know, and then two, you don't have a lot of players running nighttime, especially early wipe because it's hard to see or whatever. But even on those raids, I've probably went in raid 3 or 4 times and seen just 2 or 3 dead players laying there unlooted or like partially
Right.
looted or something. Yesterday I went in, I came out with a mechanism. It was plumb full of stuff that the guy had already looted. I got a helmet, armor, gun. You know, like I had a whole kit off of PMC, and then was still
Right.
able to go loot around, and that was entirely free. You know, like it didn't cost me
Yeah.
anything. I didn't have to risk my PMC going in for it or anything. Like it's just
Right. No
potential,
risk, all reward.
yeah, stupid low risk, crazy high reward.
Yeah.
Even if you have a bad scav raid where you don't find much, you still found something. I'm sure. You know, you're
Yeah.
still picking stuff up. You're still getting things done. You're still progressing in some way or
Everything's worth
another.
money. Everything.
Yeah, yeah,
Everything's worth. Even just the stuff you spawn with.
yeah. It's almost hard to even say that you've had a bad scav raid.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, there definitely are, some scav raids where I'm like, well, I didn't find anything, but it's like you're still coming out with something. Like there's always some money, at least, you know what I mean? Like majority of the raids, I would at least say I'd come out with a couple 100,000 rubles,
It's hard not to.
fairly
Even
easily.
running something like customs or one of the more
Yeah.
PvP focused maps, you can still make good money doing those things.
Well, like we were saying, you have the ability to walk up to dead PMCs that other AI have possibly killed, or like a big PMC fight, and like 3 or 4 of them are pretty like badly injured, so they just back off, and then there's 2 or 3 dead bodies still laying there that were never touched. You know what I mean? Like there's so many situations where you can just walk up to a ton of loot, and it's like just that alone is enough of a reason to run your scout.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you can also go in and get your mission items risk free. So like, you know, we needed dorm room 220 or 202 and then 114 and those keys like that. I didn't use my PMC to go find those keys. I went scav
Right.
raids, went to customs and checked jackets because if I get shot in dorms, who cares? 15 minutes later, we're
Well,
going back in and checking for him again.
and it's like obviously you have the missions where you can only do certain things on your PMC, but like you said with the keys, we're talking about stuff that you're going to need later on, stuff that you'll need, like a found in raid, uh, I don't know, a found in raid freaking LEDX. Like you're
Right.
probably not going to find that on your scav, but there are things that you can get for later on, like missions that you'll need keys for, missions that you'll need like food or just a lot of things that you can just go in and get that are found in raid because you got them on your scav and just throw them in your hideout until you're ready to use them for your mission.
Yeah, I mean, I already have a small chunk of keys just running, going to streets, hitting filing cabinets, you know, checking to see if Kaban was dead, and then running through Lexos. It's like so many opportunities to just get free stuff. A lot of players don't take the time to even go through filing cabinets either. So, I mean, there's not like filing cabinets are the end all be all. I'm just using that as an
But yeah, they are
example.
good. They are good.
They are good. So it's like, especially early wipe when you don't have flea, especially this wipe where you don't have flea market and you don't have
Right.
access to a lot of the barters that you need for the keys. Like there's a million and one reasons that's holding you back from getting the items, but there is zero reason to not go on your scav and just look.
Right.
Like it's too valuable not to do. And then, I mean, say you scav enough and frequently enough that you get to the, max scav rep. Like, that's just one
Right.
more perk along the line of perks. Like,
Yeah,
opens
very
up a lot of
useful
opportunities.
because
Yeah,
you
like,
can go basically team up with a boss and let the boss just kill people, and then you get all the loot. Also, you get perks along with it, such as the money system, like when car extracts and things, you don't have to pay as much. Like
yeah,
there's a
get
lot of
progressively
yeah,
cheaper.
there's
Yeah.
a lot of good things like to level in your scav rep. Like it's
Yeah,
a good thing to do, even if you don't need the items or the money or whatever. Like it's just it's free stuff. Like
it is.
there's nothing wrong with just going in and using it and getting right back out. You know what I mean? Like it, it's just it's a positive. There's nothing, no downside.
Yeah, I mean, even if you just run your scavs just to farm weapon parts, armor, helmets, your kit stuff for your PMC. And how often do we see newer players running strictly just a pistol and it's because
Yep,
they've lost everything else? You know?
all the time. Yeah, all the
And
time. We'll see somebody and we're like, man, he's damn bad, like really
yeah,
bad.
yeah. And then the guns you find in raid or the guns that you have on your scav in raid, they can be repaired really well now.
Yeah, they
So a
changed
lot
that
of
to where
them,
now they're
the
useful.
durability might be bad at the moment, but once you repair them, they jump up a good bit, like in the high
Yeah,
80s, low 90s.
95. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So you always have something coming back with your scav. Scavs are just very useful, such a good tool to utilize. There's really no downfall to them other than they're on timers, so you can only run them
right.
every so often. But I
Which that
mean,
gets lower the more
the
you do
higher
it, the
rep you get,
better.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And also, it's like I hear people all the time saying, like, why I don't run my scav. I don't need to use my scav. And it's like, or they're like, why would you even run a scav? And it's like, they're usually people who don't have much money. They're sitting there with like 80,000 rubles in their account and they're like dying all the time and can't figure out how everyone has money. It's from the scav.
It is.
I'm telling you, it's so easy to make money. If that's your situation, try running your scav for just a week or so and just see how much money you make. Like it's easily one of the best ways to stay on top of having funds for other things on your PMC.
Yeah, absolutely. You can literally go run a scav raid. Like I said, I can do lighthouse in like I don't remember what my record is, but I on average probably 13 minutes. I think 11 and a half to 13, 14 minutes is like how long I'm in lighthouse. And it's just if you know the map, right? So pick a map obviously that matters. But you just go hit the spawns. Sure, you can check every weapon crate, every box, every duffel bag, every jacket. You can check all of those things, which you should check all your jackets anyways and duffels. But you can also just specifically go in, look for the high tier spawns, and get out. Like you can go to
Right.
Shoreline and hit all the computers and all that stuff, and a lot of the times they haven't been looted yet
Right.
because a lot of players aren't looking to, especially early wipe, they're not looking to stack up on GPUs right now. But that's all stuff
Yeah.
that you can just go in for free without the risk of losing good stuff and just grab it up. And guess what? If you die, who cares? If you survive, you
Yeah.
just got out with a GPU and you're already got one for your task, and you can start putting them towards your Bitcoin farm. And it's the same is true for any items that you might need. Flash drives, Saluas, like anything and everything that you could need for a task item or that you want, you can just go in and get it for free on your scav.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can go without using your scav. There are people I'm sure who play and never use their scav at all, but it's like it's it's so much better to use your scav. You get just so much stuff that you need throughout the progression, like throughout the task that you get. You can easily find things that that's just there's just no downside. There's no other way to say it.
There's
Like
not,
if
yeah.
you're not running it, then just try it. Just do it.
Don't you want your stash to be full and have guns
Exactly.
and not only guns, the ammo that you're gonna find doing this stuff? I haven't ran a bad 545 round yet. I've been rocking BS,
Right.
BT, and BP. That's it. Because I keep finding it regularly on my scav. We're not saying abuse the scav every chance you get, but at the same time, we
No.
are saying you should use it as often as you can. And if you don't
Right.
have a group waiting on you, or you're just kind of chilling, trying to figure out what to do in between tasks, like go run some scav raids. Do like 2 a day or something, and just see the difference it makes in your stash.
Yeah.
The value is insane. And talking about looting and items and all this stuff, how do we like to approach the early wipe collecting loot, because it can be overwhelming, right? Like it can
Yeah.
be, you can fill your stash up in a matter of raids. Like in one day you can
Right.
be plumb full, no room, and you're still looking at, oh, I'll only have 500k, but I got all this shit. It's like, so how do you try to like balance what to take versus what not to take, and you know, what do you think's worthwhile of holding in your stash versus what you should just sell off right away, you know, because it is kind of like a fine delicate balance of
Yeah.
what's
Well,
worth it, what you need, and then what you want.
I mean, and that goes back to the scav thing also, because if you're scabbing pretty regularly, you're probably able to buy like a junk box or two, so you have enough
Move.
there just to like pretty much save everything that you know you're going to need later on. And that really won't take up too much room, but you're also gathering armor, you're gathering guns. So it's like you end up with a lot of stuff just sitting there. At least I do. And it's a tough thing because even I find myself all the time like having to delete or sell good things because I'm like, I want to keep them for later, but I can't because I know I don't have the room, and it's a hard thing to balance. It really is. Even us with these huge stashes, since we have like the extra stash space, we have the unheard edition, and it's like it's still hard. Like it's one of those things that you got to pretty much just go through everything and decide what you think you'll be using like immediately versus what you can afford to just find later.
I'm a really bad example of how to manage your loot because
Yeah, me too.
I've started hoarding everything. Like, granted, I have enough space that I can die or survive a couple raids, bring a bunch of shit in, sell it off, manage it a little bit, and then, you know, move on. But I also have no space because I can't bring myself to let go of anything. Like, I know
Right,
for a fact I'll probably never use this G36 Slimline H key handguard, right? And if I do,
right.
I'll probably be able to purchase it by the time I need it.
Yeah.
But on the chance that I find a G36 next scav raid or PMC raid, I'm not going to get rid of it. So it's
Well,
like,
see that's like we were talking earlier. That's some of the great things about scavenging is you get all these parts and things that you know you'll use. But then there's the second part of it, which is you
win.
can't buy those weapons yet. So it's like you got to wait till you actually find that weapon, and then you can start using those parts. So you have to decide: do I hold on to all this and wait for me to find that weapon so I can actually use it, or do I get rid of it and just that way I can bring more stuff in next scav raid? Like it's hard to balance, but like I said, it's more of a personal thing. You just got to decide what you use, what's worth more to hold on to, and what's, not going to be used in the future. So it's like if you're not going to use something fairly soon, it's probably best to just let it go because you'll find more. Like that's the one thing I
Yeah,
keep
you will.
reminding myself is like I'll find this stuff again. Like it's not it might be a good find right now, but just because it's good doesn't mean I'll never find it again. You
Right.
gotta look at it like that because otherwise you're just gonna have so much stuff where you can't really go out of a scav and drop anything off because your stash is so full. And then you're sitting there fighting with yourself over what to delete, what to keep. It becomes pretty it becomes a struggle after a while. So it's best to just get a plan in motion where you know what you're gonna keep and what you're not. Always leave yourself enough room to where if you do find a huge backpack in a scav raid or even in a PMC raid, that you have enough space to just drop it off after you get out of raid. And
Well, my rule for early wipe is always, no matter how much shit I bring in, no matter how many things I'm collecting, always have enough room to empty my entire kit.
yeah,
Backpack, armor, rig, everything. Like, if it all doesn't fit in here in a reasonable way, I did not do my job right. So I do make those hard cuts when I have to, but at the same time, I also am very bad about not making those cuts ahead of time.
yeah,
I wait
yeah. I
until
feel like
I'm
I should be
overly
doing better.
full. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 8 to 10 rigs, just rigs, I'm full of weapon parts.
right,
There's some like random one-off stuff, but a lot of the stuff that I keep in these rigs are pistol grips, sights, foregrips, rails, and butt stocks. It's all the stuff that goes together to put the gun and make it run.
right.
There are obviously things I could get rid of and should get rid of, but at the same time, it falls in line with, well, I can't get these items yet. I can unlock the M4. I have the M4. I can get this AK. So like a lot of the stuff I try to keep is relevant to the things I have currently. Now we're gonna get to a point very soon where it's like, all right, I can buy everything. I'm selling all of this stuff,
Right.
right? But until then, I think it's better to be overloaded with stuff than it is to just not have it
Yeah.
when you need it. So as
Well,
long as
and
you
then
manage your inventory to a point that you can take off your kit or even bring in 2 kits, you know, like if your buddy dies and he's like, well, I'm getting off for the night. If you can't hold his kit for the day, You've
Right.
got too much stuff, and when it comes to like that point, and you have to make those hard cuts, it's not easy, and you have to just kind of remind yourself, like Adam was saying, I will find this stuff later, so I can let it go. Like if I have to right now, I can pick out a handful of things out of each rig and slim it down, probably get rid of 2 or 3 of these rigs and be perfectly the same as I was 20 minutes ago, right?
Right.
A lot of it's a mental thing. Like it's telling yourself and reminding yourself that this is Tarkov and you find items regularly.
Well, and I feel like we both play pretty similarly, and I know not everyone does it like that. But that's also the reason why we do have good kits. Like it
Yeah,
does pay off to kind of oversave because of that. Even without level 2 traders, when we were on only level 1, we could still put together fairly good kits. Like level 4 armor, a decently modded weapon. But a lot
like
of this goes away also once you can buy cases. Like once you
yeah,
get up, say level 3 traders, and then you can just, you can, or even once flea market comes back. I know you can't buy a lot of cases on flea, but once you can
ammo
get a hold of some
boxes, grenade
cases,
cases,
yeah,
med cases, like the
med cases.
basic
Med case
cases
is
are
one of the big ones for
huge.
me.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
because I have so many meds. Just
Ammo and
I
meds,
have
those are
some
my
already in
two.
rigs and fridges to get the food and water and stuff. It's like once you get those, it opens up a lot of space. But then I'm also just doing it over again, where I just
Yeah, just refill
I
with better stuff.
yeah, I just fill that
Yeah,
empty space back up again. So it's like I play Tarkov pretty much like I always have to keep everything, and I think it helps me because I always have what I need, but at the same time, I always have just enough space to where if something happens, I can drop that off or I can move that around. You know what I mean? Like I
right.
keep it right on the edge.
I think we're both in a point where it's like, yeah, we know we can make those cuts. Seems kind of trivial, I'm sure, item management, hideout management, stuff like that, but it really impacts your play on Tarkov, because if you don't have the room to grab the items while you're out in raid doing the thing, it means you're not grabbing those task items, you're not grabbing those things that you need in advance. So you're kind of like leaving yourself stuck. Like, well, now you need 3 gas analyzers. Guess what? Go find them, right? Like I already had my gas analyzers, my flash drives, a bunch of stuff that I didn't need, all because I was running scavs and just managing my inventory.
The smartest thing is get you a junk box. If you don't have one, get you one. If you already have one, get you two because you can use them. Like they help so much and there's so much money in that stuff even if you don't use it. Stuff that you can just sell later on the flea or sell to the traders.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's just a good investment. Grab you a couple, it saves you a bunch of space. At least do
Well,
that if not anything else.
think on the bare minimum of crafting in Tarkov in your hideout, right? You're gonna need fuel and you're gonna need water filters, right? Like that's those
Right.
two are guaranteed no matter what. You need
Right.
GPUs and a bunch of other stuff obviously too. But like if you want to make your super water so you can make your moonshine, you gotta have water filters. And if you want to make anything inside your hideout, you gotta have fuel. So if you look at it as one junk box, even just for water filters, fuel, hideout specific, like I have to have these items, that saves you so much time and space. And then you have an entire junk box, because like 3 big metal fuel cans and a handful of water filters is like a quarter of your junk box. So it is
Right.
smart. Adam is entirely right. Have 2 junk boxes. You can go through an entire wipe with only 2. I went through wipes with plenty more than that, and it just
Yeah.
didn't make sense to do, because you do get to a point where you're almost eating up the positives from bringing in so much loot. You're just taking up too much space and hoarding things that you do not need to hold on to.
But yeah, it's kind of like I said, there's certain things for sure to do, like the junk box thing that you just said, and then there's also things that are just going to be preference. If there's a certain gun that you like to build and you already have access to level 2 traders and you can pretty much build it and you don't really run any other weapon, well then there's no reason to hoard a bunch of weapon parts. Or if you only use certain rigs or certain armors and you don't really, want to use anything else, like you can play that way. But I think we play as far as like we like to use what we can find, and that makes it tough when you're trying to hold on to everything. But some people don't need that much space, and I've seen people that play like that. So it's kind of just whatever your preference is.
So yeah, I think that covers like just collecting loot and kind of how we process it and go about it, and just like why we keep what we keep, those kind of things. Like I think that answers enough questions on that. Let's talk about those early wipe gun builds. Because it's what
Yeah, like the M4s you start with as a USEC or the AKs you start with as a bear, like they're pretty they're pretty bad.
yeah, they are as basic can get. Sure, you know, depending on what edition you have, you might have one of these AKs or one of the well-built MDRs, was it?
You get a
A
well-built
SCAR. You
scar.
get a contract war SCAR. That's right. So yeah,
Yeah.
you know, like there might, you know, you might get some of that stuff, but you're either A, don't want to run it and lose it yet, or B, you got that gear fear still, and you're like,
Right.
you know, or
Yeah, because you
sorry,
get
that's still
one.
part of A. Yeah.
You get
And then
one, and then you do get a couple other weapons, but they're not as built. You know what I mean?
yeah. Or option B, you do run it and you die and you lose it and then it's just gone. So it's like whatever. So you know that does happen and that is real. So like I personally, well, I go bear almost every wipe now. So I have access to AK stuff and it's a little more readily available in my stash ammo wise. So I will get the suppressed AK-74 UN or B or whichever one it is from Prapper, and then you can just buy the Cobra sight and the eye cup for the Cobra sight, the Axion Cobra sight shade, and slot it on there. And I believe you can buy the B11.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can buy the AKS-74U Zenit B11 handguard as well as the RK6 tactical foregrip. So right there's a suppressed weapon with some sort of optic running a foregrip, and then you can get the TBL laser. So boom, you've got a suppressed AK that maybe not be meta or even close to good, but it's much better than just a basic AK. I don't think there's any, you know, unless you go in raid and find some crazy weapon parts. That's probably as good as it's going to get until you find some stuff or, you know, start unlocking higher level traders.
Yeah, you can build out some decent weapons once you hit level 2 traders. You can build out an M4 pretty easily. I mean, I'm not talking like, best gun in the world, but I'm talking suppressed, a decent sight, good mags.
Stock, pistol grip,
Yeah. Now
whole
ammo
nine.
is
Yeah.
another thing. You're still gonna have to pretty much find your ammo in raid on your scav or something because you still don't have access to great ammo. But ammo is everywhere. You can find ammo. If you
Yeah.
do a few scav raids, you'll find ammo. So
The gun on screen was built off level 2 traders. Granted, the Aspid that I'm rocking, I found in raid. I don't think it's available level 2. But there's viable options that are similar. Everything else I think was purchased. And that's the other thing that level 2 traders unlock is the scope mounts. So now any scopes you found in raid, unless you have found mounts for them, you can mount them all day long, which is a major win when it comes to leveling in a Tarkov. Having that extra range is beautiful. But yeah, I mean, so gun builds obviously are going to vary based on what the player wants to run, how they like to play, this, that, or the other. Some people don't even, you know, run suppressors, so that's completely understandable.
right.
But the fact that once you get to around level 15 and you start unlocking, or at level 15 and start unlocking level 2 traders, it opens the gun building game up tenfold. Um, so you kind of have to scoot through the early stuff, but getting to level 15 is relatively easy if you're just focusing on tasking and utilizing your scav for your task items and hideout items and stuff like that. And you kind of pace pretty well. Yeah, when it comes to gun builds, early wipe, it's all about just knowing when I start the wipe, I have access to ARs, AKs, and for the vast majority, I'm gonna be running AK. 90% of the parts I pick up are either universal or compatible with guns I have access to. Covered inventory management, leveling traders kind of fall in line with that. Playstyle. So playstyle matters, obviously. Being comfortable playing the style that you like to play is obviously one thing. But then there's also, you got to think about the value, the stuff you have on you. Are you carrying a bunch of task items? Do you know, are you already geared out and killed some players and you're trying to get their stuff out, or your friends died and you don't want to die with their kits? So like depending on what's happening determines for a lot of the time the way that you're going to play, I suppose. For us, I know we always prefer a slower, methodical play style. We want,
Yeah, 100%.
especially early wipe, we want to survive with our kits. We don't want to constantly have to re-up on helmets, armor, backpack, rig, like that stuff. If you're just burning through it and losing kit after kit after kit, it's going to be really hard to keep your stash in a good place, and it's going to be really hard for you to ever get any progress in building your stash up to a point when you do unlock those level 2 traders and level 3 traders and stuff like that, to where you're able to build out your guns and you have stuff to run at that point. I have so many level 5 plates. I've got a few level 6 plates. I've got a bunch of nice helmets, a bunch of nice ears. I've got a few nice guns, and all that stuff is put away. I don't want to bleed my account dry and not have access to those things when they're finally unlocked. You know, I want to be able to have some stuff to look forward to as I get my levels and unlock new things, this, that, and the other. So the slower play style, it just feels more rewarding. One, I
It
know
does.
when somebody's pushing near me. I know that if I'm stalking around and keeping quiet, that I have a much higher chance of survival just based on the fact that I can go in and get my task item while this guy's sitting down on first floor doing whatever, shooting everybody, and he has no idea that I was there. You know, like being able to not necessarily rat, but just move quietly using
Yeah.
using your covert movement, especially now that it's been buffed,
Well,
is
see, and
this
there's a lot of people they confuse the two. They think, "Oh, you're just ratting around." It's like, no, Tarkov has that mechanic built in game. It's actually a skill. It's covert movement. The reason it's built into the game is because it's a useful way to play the game. Like you're not just hiding in a bush. You're moving around the map, but you're just taking it slow. You're being cautious about, what you're doing next move, what you're going to do when you go in the building. You just you think about everything a couple steps ahead, and it's really the best way to play the game as far as if you want to survive, if you want to, keep the things that you have, or if you want to actually, get out of the raid. Some people don't care about that stuff. Like some people just go in to fight, but it's like Tarkov's about surviving, you know what I mean? You're
yeah,
supposed to try to survive. So there's nothing wrong with using covert movement, using, being quiet. There's nothing wrong with doing that. That's a play style that's built into the game and should be used. And don't let anyone make fun of you for doing it. Be like, oh, you're ratting. You're not ratting. You're just
no,
people get upset because
you
you probably
outplayed them.
snuck up. Yeah,
Yeah,
you snuck up on them, and you know what I mean. Had the drop on them.
right.
But trust
And
me, it's
that's
everyone
exactly what
does
covert
it.
movement's for, though.
Yeah.
Like that's
Well,
what it's
everyone
there
does
for.
it too. Like
Yeah,
people act like they don't. If you watch most streamers, like whenever they're in a building, they're not running full speed from corner to corner. They're taking it slow. Like obviously there's some people who, are kind of sus and do just run from corner to corner, but majority of people that are good are taking their time, they're listening for footsteps, they're listening for gunfire. They're not just bursting through doors and, just running right through. They'll look left, look right.
right.
It's just playing smart. That's all it is.
Well, and think about it from like in raid perspective, right? If you're running, sprinting down a hallway, jumping, making a bunch of noise, how likely are you to hear when that person shifts or ADSs or starts to pull a pin on a grenade? Like when how the chances of you hearing that over you hearing, your backpack rustling, your boots slapping, your gun
Right.
jingling, like all this extra noise in your ears, it's pretty unlikely. The amount of times I've killed somebody because I've just been sitting there like slowly pacing upstairs or pacing through a hallway and they just come sprinting around a corner is
Right.
astronomical. And that's the other thing about
Right.
it too is with covert movement and when you're moving slowly, your gun's already in the ready. If you're sprinting, your gun's pointed down in a way it's not you're not ready. You have to stop in ADS and it's like unlikely that you're gonna win in that scenario. So it makes more sense. And we're not saying from spawn to extract you better be just creeping, moving quiet
Right.
the
Slow
entire
walk the
like
whole way.
yeah that's not what covert movement or our play style that we're talking about does either. We still sprint, we still shoot, we still do everything
Yeah.
that a normal fast acting player is going to do. We just do it quietly.
Right. And
We don't.
you you just know your areas. You know when to do it and when not to. Like
Yeah,
coming up to the side of dorms, you might want to stop sprinting, slow down a little bit, listen for, any gunfire, listen for any movement, and then once you get inside, yeah, creep around until you know where everyone's at or until you know that there's no one there. Like
right.
that is the way it should be used. It's like you don't have to just, constantly be, slow the whole raid. Just use it in areas that you know it's smart.
And instead of sprinting into dorms and going straight to room whatever and looting jackets and checking boxes or checking a PC block or unlocking this door, whatever it may be, instead of just going straight to that with the slower playstyle, you're going to go in, you're kind of going to probably stop off in one of the rooms and just quit moving entirely, listen for a second, try to figure out, audio cues from here or here, and then you're going to start pushing through the building and eventually you'll get to your task item or your room or whatever, but it's not you when you play slower you're being more conscientious about I want to survive. I want to get the task item. I want to do these things, but survival is going to be the main priority. There's
Yeah,
times
you
where
care
we've
more about
went in
surviving.
raid and said, "Let's go get the item." We go look for the item, or we go to the area for the item, and it's just chaos, or it's too loud, or it's some weird shit's going on, or a bunch of grenades, or whatever. And we're like, let's just go do this instead. We'll come back around to it. It's just being aware of your surroundings, being smart about your plays, caring about your stats enough to want to survive each raid, and just kind of just taking it slow. That's really all
Yeah.
it boils down to.
Well, and
Being
most
smart.
raids are, most raids are 25 to 45 minutes anyways. Like you have time to pace yourself. You don't have to rush into anything. Um and honestly, it's better to just let the raid kind of play out around you and just listen for where everything's going on. And that way you have an understanding of where most players are at, where,
Which way they're going to be moving
y-
through.
if you have a couple different missions, okay, it might be safer to go hit this mission first. And obviously, it doesn't work every time. You're gonna have people that catch you in a bad position. You're gonna have people that just happen to run up on you as you're doing something. Just luck.
Right.
That's gonna happen. You're gonna have other people that are probably cheating and they just know where you're at anyways.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. It's
those are
unavoidable.
all things. Yeah, those are all things that you can't. There's no way to fight that. Like that's just going to happen. But
But look at your play
I know
styles a
we both
numbers game.
know. I was going to say we both know that when we've played a whole wipe like that, like our survival rates are usually in the high 70s. And you know what I mean? Like that's not easy to do. You can't accidentally do that. Like you have to be trying to do that.
Yeah.
So it is possible. You just have to make yourself not even make yourself, just get used to using that as a weapon, as a way
Yeah.
to get around.
It's just another tool at your disposal for surviving the raid. And
And it feels
while
good too when
it
you
does,
flank around on this guy that was shooting at you and you just completely get behind him and he has no idea and then you just drop him. Like
yeah.
that's a satisfying thing to do.
And like Adam was saying a second ago, you still are going to have all those scenarios happen where you're just getting Tarkoved. But
Oh
the
yeah.
slower playstyle and utilizing covert movement drops that number substantially. And it starts to happen less and less. And then you start to realize those areas that you were sprinting through earlier are probably hot spots, or, like it really just helps bring everything down to a level that is a lot easier to understand compared to, well, I sprinted from spawn all the way to dorms. When did that guy start following me? When did I get tracked? Like when were they chasing me down because they were shooting at me from a long, like there's a lot of questions that get answered just by playing slower. You start to
Yeah.
notice that there's always players sprinting through areas, and a lot of the time it's just a you guys run into each other's situation. So you start to get more kills this way too. Like it's
Yeah.
slower play style may not be for everybody either,
No, it might not be.
but there
Definitely
are
some people can't do it. I know
yeah
that.
there are plenty of players that are probably looking for a play style that works for them, or know that they like a slower play style and they like the survival skill and or the covert movement skill. Um, and it's just repetition. That's what it is. Because when we started PVE, I was playing slow. I was doing the slow play style, and within a few weeks, I was already sprinting everywhere, jumping, voice lining, doing a bunch of nonsense. And then we come back to PvP, and I caught myself in a raid. I'm just like running through. I'm shooting scavs. I'm like, and I was having a
Yeah.
good time. I think I'd killed a player or two, and like I was doing stuff. But I had a fat backpack full. I had swapped out armor, and like I was doing well. I had a couple guns on me, and I'm just sprinting through an area. I think I was heading towards dorms, looking for keys, and I just sprint over that way, and I just get instantly dropped. And I'm like, wait, why am I running? What am I
Yeah.
doing this for? Like, there's no
Why am I
value
running
in
right out in the
just
open?
mindlessly sprinting openly. Yeah, exactly. And again, you're free to sprint. You're gonna have to run open areas, fields, things like. There's gonna be times where you are running.
Yeah.
It's just those tight areas, those spots that it's like there's a guy here, a guy behind me, a guy to my right. And then plus there's scavs coming through here. It's you don't want to be the one that's aggroed first by any
Right.
of them, because then they all know you're there. And so it's just one of those things that covert movement pays off tenfold. Again, I think it's just a really good skill to learn and pick up and utilize.
As long as you just understand that in Tarkov, the more you survive, the better off you're gonna do. The more money you'll have, the more everything you'll have. Like it just
Yeah.
instead of playing the raid like it's your last life, play it like you're
It's your
really
only
alive
life.
and you want to
Yeah.
survive till the next one. Like, hey, I don't want to die here. I want to make it to the next raid. Instead of thinking, oh, I'll just respawn.
My current survival streak on this PMC is at 9. I have survived 9 raids on this PMC.
Well, and then we got to mention gear fear. Gear fear is a big thing in Tarkov, especially for newer players.
Yeah,
This is one of the things, as far as playing slow, that's one of the things that'll help you more than anything with gear fear, because you're basically giving yourself a very good chance of surviving every encounter or not even having to encounter anyone. Like, if you're moving slow enough, you're going to see people before they see you. So if you have some really good gear that you don't want to lose, you're in a bad position, let them go by. You don't have to engage.
yeah,
Like, there are ways to basically win a gunfight without taking the gunfight. Because some gunfights you're just going to lose. If you're in a bad position, they got 3 guys, you're solo. Don't take that fight. You don't have to. That's part of the covert movement. Like, it gives you that ability. Otherwise, if you was running through there, those 3 guys are going to gun you down immediately because you weren't
yeah,
being quiet. And that's, if you're going to lose gear in a fight like that, and if you choose not to fight, you get to keep your gear.
yeah.
I
Especially
know
early
that's an
wipe.
awful way of saying it, but yeah,
Well, no, but that's what it is though.
It is. It
Not
is. But
taking the fight can sometimes win the fight because you're not
yeah,
losing the gear. I mean, that is a valid
right,
point. Absolutely. And I agree 100%. Especially early wipe because you don't like we said earlier, we don't have a lot of kits. We don't have the most the meta ammo, or we don't have best armor or best in slot helmet. Like, we don't have those things yet. So using covert movement, playing in a slower style, being mindful of what you have in stash, what you have available, what you have on you, it just, like you said, it helps you pick and choose what fights to even take. It's
right.
just,
Just
it's
taking
more
your
than
time.
just covert movement. It really is just a play
It
style
is.
of
It trickles
taking
down to
your
everything.
time and being smart and just, yeah,
And like I said, before you know it, it'll become like you'll just do it without thinking. You'll have the spots that that are safe to just kind of get through, and then you'll have your areas that you'll recognize, hey, this is probably a spot where I should, kind of chill out, relax, take a second, listen, think about where I'm going, think about what the last sound I heard was that gunshot near me? Were they shooting scavs? Were they fighting other players? Is there a mission item over here they're probably coming to? Like, all that stuff will become second nature eventually.
yeah.
And like we said, you'll never be 100% safe. It is
It's
Tarkov.
Tarkov. Yeah,
Like, there's always a chance somebody's going to be in an area that they're normally never at. There's always a chance someone's just going to be going somewhere for no reason whatsoever. So it's like there's always that possibility that no matter what you do, you're just going to get killed. Like, that is Tarkov. So it's like, if that happens a couple times, don't get all down on yourself and like, oh well, I'm not doing it right, or I can't do it. That just happens to everyone. It
yeah. It's
doesn't
just,
matter how
yeah.
good you are.
That is the name of the game.
There's only one way to beat that, and that is that is cheating, and that's why a lot of people do it.
Yeah, it really is. It is a big reason behind why a lot of players cheese, because they just can't manage the game well enough. So yeah, playstyle matters, and maybe covert movement isn't for you. Maybe you just can't get past running and gunning, and that's okay. At least take some of this advice, some of this, like being smart, being mindful, knowing when to run, when to walk, when to just be smarter and quieter, and this, that, and the other. Just take some of that and apply
Yeah,
it to where you can. Obviously, the exact play style we run is not going to work for everybody, but there's valuable
right.
information in there nonetheless.
And some people are chads. Like, some people just
Got that
they
dog
can
in
just
them.
win any fight. Yeah, they can win
Yeah,
any fight regardless of positioning, regardless of how many people are around them. Other people, they can't. So it's like there's always that select few that can just turn it on at any time, and most people aren't like that. So you got to figure out other ways to give yourself an advantage, and that's covert movement is one way.
yeah. Suppressors work really well too, just for exactly
Yeah,
that. They keep you quiet, keep your location disclosed or undisclosed, and just help you, keep moving without
yeah.
being detected. That will just about wrap up everything for today. We hope you found some value in this information. Good luck in raid. I'm the EarLegAthlete, and this is
Hey, Dizzle.
see you next week.